Hi everyone and welcome to a new video on the CBI channel. In this tutorial series we are creating a Django and React authentication / login system. This is not the first video in this series. In fact, we've already done 3 before, in which we've set up our Python Django backend, our React.js frontend, and we've created a custom user model. In this video we are going to continue and we're going to enable page navigation and creating a navigation menu with React Router. And we're going to do that by following 6 steps. We're going to start by installing some packages that we will need during this tutorial. Next, we're going to be adding browser router from React Router DOM to our main.jsx page. We're going to be creating a few JSX pages and add some routes and URLs to our app.js page. We're going to remove the current styling that is inside of our project and then add a navigation menu using some components from Material UI. So let's get started. The first thing that we need to do is install some packages for this video. And the first one is React Router, which is going to help us with page navigation. And if you go to the documentation and scroll over to the tutorial, you can see that you can install it by using npm install React Router DOM. So we're going to go to our code. I'm going to cd into our frontend, and in there I do npm install React Router DOM like this, and we'll give it some time to install. And when I did that, it actually found one high severity vulnerability, and to address those issues I also ran the command npm audit fix, and after I did that there were 0 vulnerabilities, so right now it should be all good. The next packages that we want to install are the ones required for Material UI. And Material UI is a components library that's going to enable us to use components, so it saves us some time during development. And the packages that we will need to use Material UI are listed on the documentation on the bottom here, which are MUI Material, Emotion React, and Emotion Styled. So I'm just going to copy over this command on the documentation and also install those packages inside of our project. Now the last library that I also would like to use are the libraries for material icons. And if you go to that documentation, you can see that some of the packages that we will need for that we've already installed, which are the MUI Material, Emotion Styled, and Emotion React. But if you want to use the icon library of Material UI, you need to have one additional package. And that is npm install @mui/icons material. So we're also going to take this one so we can use the nice looking icons from Material UI. So similar as before, we go to our frontend directory and do npm install @mui/icons material. And that is the last package that we will need during this video. Now I have already done some videos before about routing and page navigation, and also about creating navigation menus that are a little bit more elaborate. So if you want to follow those, I will also link those in the description. And all of our installs are now complete. So it is now time for the second step, which is adding the browser router to our application. And to do that, we need to go to our front-end folder, to the source folder, and then to the main.jsx file. And in there, we're going to wrap our entire application in the browser router from React Router DOM, and that is going to enable page navigation inside of our application. So the first thing that we're going to do on top of this file is make an import. And that is going to be import, and then open this curly brackets, browser router as router. And we're going to do that from React Router DOM like this. And then in the code block below it, we're going to wrap the React strict mode, this one right here, in that router component. So in here, I will define the router code block like this. I'm just going to copy in this React strict mode in there and make sure that we don't have that comma over there, like this. And let's save this file. And just like that, we have enabled the page navigation for our app. The next step is creating a few JSX pages that we will need during this video and also in the videos to come. So inside of my components folder right here, I'm going to create a couple of new files. And the first file that I'm going to create is a login.jsx file. And in this file, we are going to write all of the logic for the login page. We're going to do that in a future video, but we're already going to define some of the basics. So on top here, I'm going to create a constant called login. And we're going to say that it is equal to two of these round brackets. And then we do an arrow function like this with some of these squirrely brackets. And in this function, we want to return something to the user. So we write return. And in that return, I'm simply going to put a div that states this is the login page, like so. And this is just the basics. Later on, we're going to create a nice looking login page that the users can use. And actually, the last thing that we need to define in this login page is export it. So we do export default login, and this is going to make sure that we can use this inside of the other files as well. And let's save it. Now I'm going to copy over this login page and I'm going to rename it to register.jsx, and I'm just going to change the constant name to register and also the export default. And I'm also going to say that this is the register page instead of the login page, because we also want a place where users can register themselves inside of our application. And then once people have logged in, I would also like them to get to a home page. So we can say this is the home page. We're going to have the constant called home like this. And for later on this video, I'm also going to define a separate component called navbar.jsx. And for now, I'm just going to say this is the navbar page. We will be changing that later on in this video. I'm just going to call this constant navbar, like so. All right. And just like that, we have a few pages ready that we can work on in our application. So we have enabled the functionality to do page navigation, and we've enabled our pages. But now it is time to bring it all together. And we can do that in the app.jsx page, because our app.js file is going to function as a little bit of a urls.py file in Django. It is going to contain all of the URLs and the pages that the user can navigate to. And based on the URL extension, it is going to show certain components like the home.jsx file. So for example, when the URL is /home, I want to display the home.jsx content. But when it is /register, we want to have the register page coming up. So that's what we're going to be achieving in our app.js file. Now the first thing that we need to do is actually get rid of everything that is currently there. So in the return statement, I'm going to delete everything except for these signs right here. And that also means that we can get rid of the Feed logo and the React logo, like this. Next, I'm going to do some imports. So I'm going to import the pages that we have just created. So I'm going to import home from components.home. I'm going to import register from components.register. Now, same goes for importing our login from login. And we're going to import our navbar already, even though we're not really going to do anything with that. And we're also going to import routes and route from React Router DOM, because this is going to enable us to create different routes or URLs inside of our front end, and based on the URL extension, it is going to show us the right JavaScript components. And we can also delete this constant with count or set count, because we don't really need that right now. All right, so in our return statement right now, we are going to define a few routes. So first thing we do is I'm going to put in a block for all of the routes. Now within the route block, I can define multiple singular route blocks. So for example, I can do this, so I can define a route like so, and we can have multiple of them. And within this, we need to define the path and the element. And the path is equal to the URL, and the element is equal to the JavaScript component that we want to show when we get to that URL. So for example, I can say that the path is going to be equal to a slash, which will just be the basic extension of our front end. And if we are over there, I want to show the element of our login page. And actually login needs to be defined as a block as well, like this. And now when we go there, we will actually see the content that we've just defined on our login page, which is quite nice. Now we can do the same thing for the different paths because, for example, when I go to slash register, I would like to see our register component. And the same goes for when we are at slash home. I would like to see the home component like this. And perhaps it is easier to just show you. So let's start our server with npm run dev and let's take a look in our browser what this looks like. Alright, so we have now started the server and we are in our local host just in a normal root and you can see the content. This is the login page. And the reason for that is because the slash is going to show the element of login. So that works the way that we expect. Now if I would go to slash register, you would see that the content will change and it will show the content from our register page. So it now says this is the register page. And it's going to be exactly the same. When I do home, it's going to say this is the home page. So that is the way that this works. Now you can already see when we visit these kind of pages that there has already been some styling applied. For example, the font is different than what you would expect when you normally start up an application from scratch. And also our divs and our content is perfectly centered in the center of the screen. And the reason that this happens is because inside of the app.css file and also in the index.css file, there have already been some things defined. So in the app.css, I'm just going to delete some of the main things. So there have been a bunch of things defined for a logo, but we're not going to be using that, so that can go. Same goes for this part and also for the card and read the docs part, because we really don't use those. It also has a root functionality with a text align and different kinds of settings, and that's also not required. So our app.css file is going to be completely empty and we will write our own CSS once we get it. In our index.css, I'm going to do exactly the same. The only thing that I want to keep is the font family because I quite like to have a global font already defined. So I'm going to delete all of the items except for the font family. And I'm also just going to delete all of the stuff about the button and those kind of things. The only thing that I'm leaving is the root statement with the font family. The rest can go. And you can now see inside of our code that things have changed a little bit. Our items are no longer centered, they're in the top left of the screen, but the font has remained, so that is nice. Now, of course, it's nice to navigate to different items using the top row. Like, I want to go to register, let's type in register. But ideally, you would like to do that with a navigation menu. So I'm going to show you how you can quickly get a navigation menu inside of your application. And we're just going to do that for the home page because the login and the register pages are going to be a little bit different. Because ideally what I would like to achieve is that when a user opens up the application, he goes to the login page without a navigation menu, and in there he will have the option to log into our app or have a link stating that he can go to the register page. Once he has fully logged in, then he can go to the home page where he will see a nice navigation menu. And for the creation of the navigation menu, we're going to use Material UI because Material UI has loads of ready components that we can just copy over and use in our application. Now, if we go to the components section on the left-hand side, you can see that it has different kind of things such as buttons, different form fields, sliders, and all these kind of things. But we want to go down a little bit until we hit the navigation items. And you can see they have some things such as bottom navigation or breadcrumbs, but we're going to check out the drawers. And in the drawer sections, you will see a number of examples that we can use inside of our app. So for example, it has the menus like here, like a temporary drawer. It also has things that are swipeable. It has a responsive drawer where items are on the left and the top bar is right there. But if we scroll down a little bit further, we will get to the design that I actually like the most. And that is the clipped under the app bar drawer. And this will provide us with a nice top bar with some text, a navigation menu on the left, and then our content can go right there. So I'm going to click on show code, and I'm just going to copy over everything inside of this demo. And I'm going to go back to my code and go to the navbar section, and I'm going to replace the entire thing that is in there with the code that we have just seen. And as a last thing, I'm going to then change this navbar function because it was called clipped drawer, but I want to have the name navbar. And then I'm going to save it, so now it has the right name. And then if we go to our app.jsx file, in here we can simply define that we have navbar and save it. And we're going to take a look at what we will see inside of our app. So I've reloaded the page, and we now indeed, even when we go to the register page or whether we go to the home page, we will see that navbar. Now that we see the navbar is good, but there are a few challenges that we currently have. Now, the first thing is that these navigation items are not my navigation items, so we will need to change it. The second thing is that in here, I'm currently seeing this text, which has been defined by Material UI, but I actually want to see the content of my homepage in this empty space. So we also will need to change that. So going back to our code again, and we're going to go to the navbar.jsx, and I'm going to delete all of the typography that has been set, which is just the basic stuff that Material UI has defined. And I'm going to replace it by a prop or a variable, and I'm going to call it content, because this is the place where I would like to see the content. Next, I'm going to go up in my navigation menu, and in there I'm going to define a constant called content, and that is going to be equal to props. And then we're going to put props to the navbar like this and save it. And now when we go to our app.jsx file, I can define what my content is. So what needs to be in that space where we want to have the content. So going over to our app.jsx file, what I could do is simply open up the navbar and in here define content like this. And then between these brackets, I can put in my entire code and define that that is content. Like this. And if I now save it and defining that the content needs to be on the place of the content based on the link, it should only show the text from our pages. And indeed, when I'm now in the home page, it says this is the home page. If I go to the register page, it shows this is the register page. And if I go to the login page, you will see this is the login page. Next thing we will fix are these items on the left. So in our navbar file, you will see that it has defined a list, and inside of that list, it kind of loops over different items and it generates menu items based on that. Now I just want to define my own menu items, and so I'm going to change this a little bit. So in this list component, the first thing that I'm going to do is delete the second list. And if we save that, you will see that the list has gotten a little bit shorter. We also see a divider right here. So I'm going to go back to my code and delete this divider. And inside of this list, I'm actually going to delete this map statement because I don't want to map over different things and create different things based on it. So let's get rid of that. And I'm just going to say right here that I want the inbox icon as our icon, because in between this list item icon, we need to define the icon that we want to use. It can be an inbox. And in the text section, I will just say that this is our homepage. And also in the key, I'm just going to say that this is going to be a 1. And if we now go back, we will see that we have a menu item just for home. I'm actually going to create another list item just to have a little bit more content there. And I'm going to say that I also want to have an about page. And I'm also going to change the icons, because if I go to the page now, I have 2 menu items, both with the same icons. Now, luckily, in the material icons section at Material UI, we can pick our own icons. So if I look for home, it will give me a lot of different homes. So I'm just going to copy over the home icon from Material UI icons, go to the top of my navbar page and put in my home icon, and then we can do home icon as our icon for home. And if we look for about, we get an info icon. So I'm just going to copy over our info icon and also put that one on the top here, and just defining the icons that we're currently not using. And we're also not using this divider. And this info icon is going to take the place in the about section like so. And now if we go back, we see that we have a home page and an about page. So that is quite nice. Now, two things that this is currently not doing. It is not actually going anywhere, so it doesn't have a link. And it also doesn't highlight the page where we're currently at. But luckily, we can fix that very easily. Now, in our navbar, I'm going to do some imports from React Router DOM, because also for this question they have an answer. So I'm going to do import link, and I'm also going to import use location, and that is from React Router DOM. And to highlight the page where we are currently at, we first need to define where we are actually at. And to do that, we can define a constant called location, which is equal to the use location statement, because that is going to tell us where we are actually at in terms of URLs. And then we can also get the path of that. So I'm going to define a constant called path. And that path is going to be equal to that location variable, and then dot path name. And this is going to give us the extension of where we are at. So for the register page, is going to say that our location, the path name, is register. And that's the way that we can evaluate whether we are on the current page. So let's go to our menu items right here, and we need to make a few changes to make sure that these become links, and that it also recognizes when we are on the page, so it highlights the current link. So in the list item button thing right here, we're going to set a variable called component, and it's going to be equal to link. And by defining this, it actually knows that it should act as a link. And then we can also define a to statement, which states where the link should go to. Now for our home page, it is /home. Now we can also define a statement called selected, and this is going to determine whether that button is going to be a little bit highlighted because we are on our current page. And to do that, we need to evaluate it with some logic. So we want the button to be highlighted once we are in the /home location. So we're going to evaluate if our /home is equal to the path. And path is the extension that we have defined in the constant right here. So it's simply going to say, is the path equal to home? If that is the case, then this is going to appear as a selected field. Otherwise, it is not. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the about page. So in the list item button, I'm going to paste that in, and we're going to do /about and also /about. Now I am aware that we currently do not have an about page. So to make that work, I'm going to just copy over our home.jsx file, call it about.jsx, and say this is the about page. And I'm also going to call the constants about and the export default as about. And then in our app.jsx file, we're going to import our about page. And I'm just going to create a new root with the path of about, because that is how we have defined it. And then also the component of about, like this. And let's check out what we are going to see. And we are currently on the login page. And if we now go to the home page, you can see that the home page is different, or the home block is now a different color. Now, if we go to the about page, it does exactly the same. It switches the component, which means that we are on the about page, and it's also going to highlight that part. Now, the tricky thing is when I go to register, it is still going to show us the register page component, including the elements right here. But for my login page and for my register page, I don't want a navigation menu. I just want a basic page the way it was before. Well, there's luckily an easy way that we can change our app.js file to make sure that that works. So back in our app.jsx file, and we're going to start by doing an import similarly to our navbar. We're going to import the use location from React router DOM, and we can add it to our existing statement. Next, we're going to define a constant called location, and it's going to be exactly the same as in our navbar, going to be equal to use location. And this is going to tell us, again, where we are inside of our app. Next thing that we need to do is we need to identify when we want the navbar to not show up and when we do want it to show up. So I'm going to create a constant that is going to identify when we will need no navbar. And we will not want to see a navbar when the location.pathname is equal to /register, or when the location.pathname is equal to just a slash. Because when the register page or the login page are on the screen, we don't want to see that navbar. And we can now press save. Now in our return statement, we are going to evaluate whether we are on those URLs. So we're going to evaluate this constant. And if this constant is true, then we don't want to see the navbar. And if the constant is false, then we do want to see the navbar. So in our return statement, I'm going to open some squarely brackets like this. And in there, I define no navbar. And if that is true, then I want to have the routes of the login and the register without the navbar. So I'm just going to copy that over from our current setup. But if we are not at the register or the login URLs, then I do want to see the navbar. So in that case, I'm going to display the content right here. So I'm just going to copy over that entire command and paste it right here. And let's fix these empty spaces. So what does this evaluate? It's checking whether the location where we are at, whether that's equal to either the register location or our login URL. If that is the case, then we want to display the routes without a navbar. So when we go to the register or this one, it will just show us the content from our login JSX file. However, if the paths are not equal to register or equal to the URL for our login, then we want to show the navbar with the content inside of it. And that is going to be the case for our home page and for our about page. So let's save our changes and let's go to our app to see how that works. So we are back in our application and you can see that when we are on the home page or when we go to the about page, it shows the navigation menu. But when we go to the register page, it just shows the content of our register JSX file and not the navigation menu. And same goes if we just go to the login page, it also does not show the navbar, but it shows the content of our login page. And that is exactly what we want to achieve. And that is actually all that we're going to be doing for today. In this video, I showed you how to enable page navigation using React Router DOM. And we've also created some pages and added a navigation menu only for the pages that we would like to see. In the next video, we're going to continue and I'm going to apply some styling to our login and our register pages so it looks a little bit better. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. That really helps me out. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.